Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Dark History Podcast, where we explore the darkest parts of human history. Hope everybody is well. I'm Rob, your host as always. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 28, The Dancing Plague of 1518, Madness, or Mass Hysteria. In the summer of 1518, a peculiar and terrifying event gripped the city of Strasbourg. Hundreds of people began dancing uncontrollably, moving in frenzied bursts without rest. This bizarre episode came to be known as the Dancing Plague of 1518. As people twisted and turned, some danced until they collapsed from exhaustion. Others faced more gruesome fates, succumbing to heart attacks or strokes. This incident raises questions about the human psyche and the potential horrors that lie just beneath the surface of society. What caused this outbreak? Was it madness, disease, or something even darker? Many theories have surfaced, ranging from ergot poisoning to mass hysteria. You might wonder how collective trauma or societal stress can manifest in such a way. In a time of extreme hardship, people faced uncertainty and fear daily. The pressure of survival in the community, scarred by loss and suffering, can create a breaking point. Today, we will explore this unsettling chapter of history. We'll look at the people affected by this strange phenomenon, the responses from authorities, and the lasting impact on Strasbourg and beyond. As we peel back the layers of this dark event, you might find yourself questioning the thin line between sanity and madness. So without further ado, please sit back and relax next to the fire for more dark history. In the early 16th century, Europe faced monumental change. The echoes of the Black Death still haunted communities, leaving cities and villages scarred by loss and fear. Economies struggled to recover, while people confronted the harsh realities of poverty and hunger. Amidst this turmoil, religious reformation swept across the land, challenging the existing order and igniting significant upheaval and conflict throughout the region. France found itself at the centre of unrest. The monarchy grappled with political strife, contending with internal factions and external threats. The nation displayed a striking division between the wealthy and the poor, as the elite enjoyed lavish lifestyles, while commoners faced rising prices and increasing hardships. In this environment, superstition flourished. People sought explanations for their suffering, often turning to accusations of witchcraft to make sense of the chaos surrounding them. Strasbourg, a key city in the Holy Roman Empire, vividly reflects these tensions. Its bustling marketplaces were filled with merchants, craftsmen, and wandering scholars. Yet beneath this lively exterior lay simmering discontent, fueled by economic instability. Poor harvests deepened the divide between the affluent and the struggling masses. Additionally, Strasbourg became a focal point of religious conflict, with Protestant reformers clashing with devoted Catholics, creating an atmosphere thick with fear and uncertainty. It was within this context of anxiety that an extraordinary and chilling event unfolded in the summer of 1518. In Strasbourg, a strange phenomenon took hold. Hundreds began to dance uncontrollably, swept up in a frenzy of movement that defied explanation. The madness began with a woman named Frau Trophea. On a hot summer's day in July 1518, she stepped out of her home and into the streets of Strasbourg, consumed by an inexplicable urge to dance. Her movements were frantic and wild, lacking any discernible rhythm. She spun and twirled, her face reflecting a mix of joy and torment, her body moving as if it was not her own. At first, onlookers were curious. They gathered, unsure whether to laugh or express concern. They watched as she danced, sweat glistening on her skin. Hours passed, but she did not stop. Day turned into night, yet Frau continued her relentless dance, her body refusing to relent. The crowd grew, fascinated by this strange woman. Whispers filled the air as people speculated about her state. Some thought it was a religious fervour, others assumed she was simply mad. After a few days, people began to take notice of her exhaustion. It wasn't long before others joined her in this eerie display of energy. They moved, hesitantly at first, mimicking her erratic steps. But soon, the dance became infectious. Men, women, and children began to sway and spin in the streets, echoing her frantic movement. What started as a curious spectacle morphed into something unsettling. The atmosphere shifted from bewilderment to dread as the situation spiraled out of control. It was not a celebration. It was a nightmare unfolding before their eyes. Amidst the chaos, musicians appeared, drawn by the feverish energy of the dancers. They played simple, repetitive tunes on flutes and drums, fueling the frenzy. The sound of music intertwined with the pounding of feet on cobblestones. It became a maddening symphony of chaos, urging the dancers to move faster and harder. The beat echoed through the streets, amplifying the trance-like state many found themselves in. The rhythm was relentless, matching the frantic energy of the crowd. As the days wore on, the dancers grew increasingly frantic. They felt a feverish urgency, a compulsion that pushed them to move, to keep dancing despite the pain. Some stumbled in agony, their bodies convulsing as they tried to keep moving. Others danced until they collapsed from exhaustion, only to be dragged back into the frenzy by their friends and family. They were caught in a cycle they could not escape. The music enveloped them, intensifying the delirium that had taken hold. In a matter of weeks, the city transformed into a stage for this horrifying spectacle. The streets of Strasbourg were alive with the chaotic movement. You could see the desperation in the dancers' eyes, the fear creeping into their expressions. It was no longer a vibrant celebration, typical of a summer festival. Instead, it had become a haunting display of human endurance and suffering. The sounds of laughter and joy faded, replaced by cries of pain and exhaustion. No one could predict when it would end, or how many lives it would claim. The people of Strasbourg were left to grapple with the chilling reality of the dancing plague, a strange and terrifying event that would forever mark their history. Initially, city officials were baffled by this outbreak. The town's doctor stepped in, attempting to provide a rational explanation. They ruled out supernatural causes, explaining the phenomenon as a case of hot blood. According to their theories, the dancers needed to sweat out their feverish condition, and dancing was seen as a way to cure their ailment. In a strange turn of events, rather than attempting to suppress the outbreak, the authorities supported the dancers. They brought in musicians and constructed makeshift stages, hoping that the music would soothe the afflicted and help the dancers regain control. They believed that the festive atmosphere would help cleanse the disease that had taken hold. However, the city's intervention had the opposite effect. The added music only fueled the frenzy. The streets echoed with chaotic sounds as people swayed, leaped and convulsed in a terrifying symphony of movement. The atmosphere became increasingly frantic and desperate as more onlookers joined in the chaotic display, overwhelmed by the sheer energy surrounding them. As the days turned into weeks, the situation escalated. The dance, once an oddity, morphed into a relentless, brutal force. Dancers pushed their bodies to the limits, enduring exhaustion, dehydration, and injuries. Some collapsed on the streets, their bodies limp and lifeless. Others succumbed to heart attacks or strokes, their hearts unable to cope with the intense strain of their unrelenting dance. The streets of Strasbourg filled with the sounds of agony. Bodies lay scattered, some still twitching, while the remaining dancers continued their macabre movements. The vibrant city, known for its lively spirit, now echoed with the cries of despair. Panic spread through the city like wildfire. Families, friends and onlookers watched in horror as their loved ones danced themselves to death. This was no longer a peculiar event. It had turned into a nightmare. You could hear the frenzied music in the background, a haunting reminder of the chaos. Musicians tried to keep up, but their melodies seemed to mock the dancers' plight. The sound became a cruel soundtrack to the suffering. No one knew when the dance would end, or who might be next to fall. Each dancer was caught in the grip of madness, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on the city. With reports of fatalities growing, the atmosphere shifted from bewilderment to sheer terror. The local authorities felt powerless. They tried to intervene, but their efforts were in vain. They offered remedies and prayers, but nothing worked. People turned to superstition, believing that a curse had befelled them. As fear took hold, many avoided the streets, opting to lock themselves indoors, haunted by the knowledge that they could be next. Strasbourg felt like a ghost town. The laughter and the chatter once filled the streets faded away. Shops closed early, and merchants lost their businesses as customers stayed home, gripped by anxiety. The local church held prayers for the afflicted, but even those felt futile. The sense of doom hung over the city like a dark cloud, suffocating any glimmer of hope. The community, once tightly knit, began to fracture. Friends and families were torn apart by grief. Some tried to care for the dancers, but many could only watch helplessly. As the dance dragged on, the lines between life and death blurred. Those still dancing appeared to be in a trance, lost to the world around them. It became unclear if they were dancing out of joy or despair. Strasbourg, once a place of culture and celebration, became synonymous with dread. The dancing plague was no longer just a strange phenomenon. It was a horrific reality. You could feel the weight of suffering in the air. The fear spread, and as more dancers fell, the Grim Reaper's shadow loomed larger. This grim chapter of history continued to unfold, leaving behind a legacy of pain and unanswered questions. We're going to take a little break here.
Ireland Crimes and Mysteries.
Welcome to Ireland Crimes and Mysteries, the podcast that delves deep into the haunting true stories of Irish crimes and unexplained disappearances. From the pages of history to the recent past, I bring you the compelling narratives that have both shattered and fascinated the Emerald Isle. Join me every fortnight on Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time as I embark on a journey to uncover a different story each time. With the help of family members and friends in some episodes, I paint a vivid picture of who these individuals truly were, their aspirations for the future and the deep love they shared with their loved ones, before everything changed forever. So mark your calendars and join me, your host Nools, and follow my channel, Ireland Crimes and Mysteries, in order to never miss an episode. Together, let's shed light on the lesser known aspects of Ireland's past and explore the mysteries that still haunt its present. So keep your eyes open and your mind curious, and don't miss out on a single episode of Ireland Crimes and Mysteries, part of the Spreaker Prime network and also available on all major podcast platforms. You can also follow me on my socials over on Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and TikTok to keep up to date with all my latest stories.
Island Crimes and Mysteries.
In a world buzzing with notifications, welcome to Midday Musings, the cure to internet overwhelm. The Fallout Wasteland very closely resembles the Wild West, with a few extra notes.
Right? It's like a post-apocalyptic Wild West, but with a ton of steampunk elements.
Dive into discussions on media that matters, history that fascinates, and relationships that resonate.
Drive. I love that. I also believe that's my defining characteristic.
Stephen, it is why I fell in love with you.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm having feelings, but not the bad kind.
Join us, two best friends who've navigated life side by side for nearly a decade.
I just wanted to talk about robots and
I knew
aliens.
it.
I just wanted to do it, that's all.
This is all a ruse.
It was.
Your cozy corner, where conversations are just the right size for your lunch break.
So hit pause on the chaos, subscribe to Midday Musings, and join our family. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. One prominent explanation for the dancing plague is ergot poisoning. Ergot is a fungus that infects rye and other grains. It produces toxic alkaloids that can lead to hallucinations, spasms, and extreme behaviour. Those who consume contaminated bread could have experienced disturbing symptoms, which might explain the uncontrollable dancing observed in the streets of Strasbourg. However, the ergot theory has its shortcomings. While ergot poisoning can cause severe physical reactions, it usually includes symptoms such as intense pain, severe hallucinations, and even gangrene. The behaviour of the dancers was primarily physical, lacking clear evidence of hallucinations. Their bodies moved as if compelled by an external force, making the connection to ergot poisoning less convincing. As historians and medical experts examine the archives, the links to ergot continue to spark debate. Could a group of people all consume tainted bread at the same time? Could it lead to such synchronized, frenzied movements without other accompanying symptoms? While ergot poisoning offers an intriguing theory, it fails to fully explain the complexities of the dancing plague. Other popular explanations centre on the religious beliefs of the time. In 1518, medieval Europe was steeped in superstition and fear of divine retribution. Many believed the dancing plague was a punishment sent from St. Vitus, the patron saint of dancers. This belief echoed through the streets of Strasbourg as fear took hold. The populace viewed the plague as a direct result of their sins. People assumed they were cursed, doomed to dance endlessly as penance. The narrative of St. Vitus's wrath became a collective understanding, shaping the way the citizens perceived the outbreak. This notion has roots in religious fervour that ran high during this period. The idea of divine punishment resonated deeply within communities. Many turned to prayer and ritualistic practices, hoping to alleviate their suffering. They organised pilgrimages to the shrine of St. Vitus, seeking absolution and protection from the malevolent forces that seemed to grip their city. In addition to ergot and religious beliefs, psychological factors could have played a role. The collective stress of life in 16th century Europe, marked by famine, disease and social upheaval, likely contributed to this mass hysteria. The fear of the unknown can provoke extreme reactions. When faced with an inexplicable phenomenon like the dancing plague, people might have resorted to communal expression, even if it manifested as destructive behaviour. The combination of these theories creates a complex picture of the dancing plague. Each theory offers a piece of the puzzle, but none provide a complete explanation. The event remains one of history's unsettling mysteries, leaving you to ponder the fragility of the human psyche when confronted with fear and uncertainty. The most widely accepted explanation for the dancing plague is mass hysteria. This phenomenon occurs when a group of people experience the same physical symptoms, often driven by a collective anxiety. The stressful conditions of the time in Strasbourg played a crucial role in the outbreak. The year 1518 was marked by hardship. Disease, famine, and social unrest plagued the region. The people of Strasbourg lived in constant fear. The psychological strain on the population was immense, creating a perfect storm for mass hysteria to take root. When Frau Trophea began dancing, it acted as a catalyst, triggering an outbreak of fear and frenzy. In times of extreme stress, the human mind can react in unpredictable ways. When anxiety grips a community, it can manifest in physical symptoms that spread from person to person. The sight of Frau Trophea dancing might have been enough to set off a chain reaction. As others joined in, the overwhelming energy of the event further fueled the hysteria, creating a feedback loop that intensified the collective experience. Mass hysteria isn't a new phenomenon. Throughout history, there have been similar outbreaks. One of the most notorious examples occurred in the Salem witch trials in the late 17th century. In Salem, Massachusetts, a group of young girls claimed to be possessed and accused several townsfolk of witchcraft. The panic quickly spread, leading to a frenzy of accusations, trials, and executions. People acted irrationally, driven by fear and the desire to protect themselves. The mass hysteria consumed the community, resulting in the deaths of 20 people and the imprisonment of many more. Another historical incident is the dancing plague of 1374, which took place in Germany. After a procession in Aachen, hundreds of people reportedly danced uncontrollably in the streets. This earlier event shares similarities with the 1518 outbreak. Like Strasbourg, the region faced social turmoil and disease. The dancers moved wildly, prompting panic and confusion among onlookers. Reports from the time describe individuals collapsing from exhaustion, and it became a spectacle that added to the collective anxiety of the community. Fast forward to the 1960s, and you find the Tanganyika laughter epidemic. In a village in Tanzania, a group of schoolgirls started laughing uncontrollably. The laughter spread to others, turning into a mass outbreak. It disrupted the village for months, affecting schools and communities. The laughter was often described as uncontrollable and infectious, much like the dance in Strasbourg. Health officials struggled to contain the situation, and some individuals reportedly experienced physical symptoms such as fainting and respiratory issues due to the hysteria. The link between collective anxiety and mass hysteria remains relevant today. Instances of panic have been observed in modern contexts, including social media-induced phenomena where trends can spread rapidly, creating waves of behaviour that seem to transcend rational thought. This psychological response is often triggered by shared fear and experiences. A notable example occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic when communities faced collective anxiety over health risks. People flocked to the stores, leading to panic buying and irrational behaviour. Fears of the unknown can trigger reactions that defy explanation. The psychological framework behind mass hysteria suggests that it is a coping mechanism. In the face of overwhelming stress, individuals may subconsciously seek solace in a collective experience, even if those experiences lead to chaos. The fear of isolation can drive people to participate in group behaviour, no matter how bizarre. The dancing plague in Strasbourg can be understood in this light. The aftermath of the plague left the citizens grappling with what had transpired. Their experience shaped the community's collective memory. The echoes of mass hysteria lingered, illustrating how fear can distort reality and turn ordinary events into profound human tragedies. As we reflect on the dancing plague of 1518 and its historical parallels, it serves as a reminder of the fragile nature of the human psyche when faced with the fear of uncertainty. The events in Strasbourg are not isolated. They are part of a broader narrative of how humanity can spiral into chaos when collective anxiety takes hold. As the dancing plague continued, the death toll climbed. Estimates suggest that dozens, if not hundreds, perished from the relentless dance. Picture the city streets transformed into a macabre theatre of despair, filled with the bodies of those who danced until they collapsed, never to rise again. Some victims died of exhaustion, while others succumbed to heart attacks, strokes, or injuries sustained during their frantic movements. The scene was horrific. Bodies lay lifeless on the cobblestones, surrounded by a cacophony of cries and shouts. Families were torn apart. Friends were left to grieve their loved ones, all while the maddening dance persisted. The authorities attempted to control the situation, but their efforts proved futile. As music filled the air, more dancers joined. Abandoning any semblance of restraint, people became entranced by the rhythm, losing themselves in the chaos. The human cost of the dancing plague was staggering. The citizens of Strasbourg grappled with the trauma of what had occurred. The memory of the event would linger, haunting the city for generations to come. Eventually, the madness began to wane, though not without leaving its mark. Local authorities decided to take drastic action. They believed that the changing environment might break the dancers' trance. In an effort to intervene, they moved the dancers to a nearby field, hoping that the different setting would lessen the grip of the strange urge. As the dancers were relocated, many began to collapse from exhaustion, while others appeared to come to their senses. The frenzy started to fade as a few individuals managed to stop, left with the haunting memories of their experience. Over time, the crowds thinned, and the sounds of frantic dancing gave way to silence. The townspeople began to return to their daily lives, though the scars of the event lingered. The arrival of autumn, with the cooler temperatures and harvest festivities, likely played a role in the decline of the dancing. People redirected their energies towards preparations for winter and celebrations of harvest, alleviating some of the collective stress that fueled the dance. Others argue that the natural course of the hysteria simply ran its course, and the individuals eventually returned to their senses. As the last dancers collapsed, the collective sigh of relief was palpable, yet the aftermath left the community forever changed. The memory of the dancing plague became a cautionary tale, and a reminder of how easily fear and mass hysteria can grip a population. Survivors struggle to make sense of the chaos, carrying the trauma with them long after the last notes of the music faded from the streets. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this dark episode. The dancing plague of 1518 remains a chilling chapter in history. In summary, the Dancing Plague is a haunting example of how fear can drive a community to madness. Theories surrounding it, particularly mass hysteria, offer insight into the complexities of human behaviour under duress. As we analyse this episode, it encourages a deeper understanding of how social pressures shape our actions. This topic is not just an oddity, it's a reflection of our own vulnerabilities as humans. Anyway, this is the last episode before our highly anticipated Christmas special, set to drop on Christmas Eve. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. In this upcoming episode, we'll explore some truly bizarre and captivating tales surrounding Christmas traditions from around the world. Expect to hear stories that range from the wonderfully whimsical to the downright strange. You'll learn about customs that might just surprise you, as well as the origins of some of the traditions we hold dear today. So grab a cozy blanket, settle in, and get ready for the festive deep dive into the quirks and charms of Christmas traditions. I can't wait for you to join us. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review. It really helps us reach more listeners by boosting our visibility in the algorithm. If you think friends and family may enjoy the podcast, don't hesitate to share it with them. You'll find links to our socials below. I know ads can sometimes be a pain, so if you prefer ad-free episodes, check out our Patreon link, also provided. Supporting us on Patreon is a great way to contribute, but it is entirely optional. We also have a merch store, link below, where any purchases greatly support the show and help cover production costs. If you've been listening for a while and haven't subscribed yet, please do so. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Thank you for your support. So with all that out of the way, thank you again for listening. Join us next time for our next episode as we delve into another event and more dark history.